Hi, Tom. It's so good to see you. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you, Whitney. I am glad to be here and glad to be on the program. As far as my experience, as we talked about the other day, my offer of a perspective of someone that's within the meetings still. And I'll be honest with you, this really isn't my story. There are so many people that are in the same position, families with kids that are extremely concerned, everything up to people that are in their 80s, 70s, and 80s. In one case, an elder and his wife who have been professing for over 40 years. Anyway, that's where I'm coming from. Now, I'll give you a little on who I am. I was born in Oregon, raised in Washington State, moved to Michigan in 89.
Hmm.
So, as far as the truth, my folks both met the truth when they were younger. My mother was just a kid in Pueblo, Colorado, when it came to her family, and then my father was had been married before he married mom, and his first wife was raised in the truth. She was a void
Hmm.
of that whole Midwest thing, but it seemed like she was not going to meetings or anything at first, and somewhere in the 50s, 40s, 50s, somewhere in there, they left the church they've been going to and started going to meetings. And I was never, yeah, I was raised with the standard sort of, sort of things. You go to meetings, but I would go to church with a couple friends of mine from school.
Hmm.
I'd go with them.
Hmm.
They'd go with me. No big deal. Now, what happened when my father passed away when I was 15? He had not been going to meetings for several years, probably 10 years or better.
Hmm.
And it didn't seem like mom and I went to meeting and come home and he'd be there. My strongest memory of him is as we would leave for meeting, he'd be sitting on the couch with his Bible reading. So
Hmm.
I never doubted that he had a faith and had connection and all of that. He would go to special meetings. He would go to conventions. Don't remember going to gospel meetings that much, but Sunday morning meeting, Wednesday night meeting was no. Okay. As a kid, I never asked questions. Never thought it was unusual
Hmm.
or weird. And after he passed away, mom came to me and she says, I need to tell you something that I told dad I would never tell you until he was gone. He'd gotten into a business deal with one of the friends and it had gone sour.
Hmm.
And the workers had sided with the other individual.
Hmm.
And dad felt that was incorrect. It was wrong. So he said, I cannot be in meetings with that man. Yeah, he's dishonest. Well, 15-year-old kid, social justice and all that are just key and important in your life, and you know,
Hmm.
part of being a teenager. So I said, all right, I can't have anything to do with this at all. I'm completely stepping aside.
Hmm.
And so mom's okay, fine, and she quit going to meetings as well. So I get, fast forward a little bit, and I'm seeing this girl and stop have lunch with her a couple of times a week, kind of thing, and we bet on the weekends, that sort of thing. Well, I pulled into her house one day and there's a guy there, you know guy, he's probably late 20s, and so she introduced me to him as he is the youth minister at a local Lutheran church. Oh, okay. At this point, I had like no churches. I had nothing wanted to do with anything with the religion whatsoever. So I kind
Hmm.
of just exchanged pleasantries and went on my way. And so it started bugging me over the weekend. So next week or so, I stopped by her place and I said, "Hey, that guy was here last week. Can I get in touch with him?" She said, "Oh
Mhm.
my goodness." She says, "He died over the weekend. He
Mhm.
was killed in a diving accident. He and two other boys from his church were killed in a diving accident." Oh my goodness sakes! Well, it happened to be a Wednesday night, so I got home from work and I said to Mom, I says, "I got to find a meeting tonight. I'm going to a meeting
Mhm.
tonight." And I was 17 at that time, just getting ready to head off to college, and so
Mhm.
that was all part of it. So I professed at Milltown that year, and then I went off to college, and everything was fine. Got married, had a kid in '86.
Mhm.
In '88, my first wife passed away from cancer,
Mhm.
and that was rough, obviously.
Mhm.
That next special meeting rounds, Jan Hilton came to stay with me,
Mhm.
and we spent a lot of time talking. And he said to me, he says, "You realize, of course, that God had nothing to do with your wife's death. Mothers and wives and families are so important to him." He went verse by verse by verse through the Bible, and it was great. It was wonderful. Uh,
Mhm.
then I come to Michigan and got married to a great woman here. Have two more
Mhm.
kids. I've got three girls now. And in the '90s, my oldest daughter was starting to tell us about Pierre Musso. And he had approached her friend, one of her best
Okay.
friends, and she was able to escape from his clutches and was safe.
Mhm.
We didn't report it to the workers, but others had. And I kind of lost track. He kind of, went away. I don't, whatever. I don't know. Then fast forward another range, and we run into Darren Briggs. And Darren was caught wrestling, so to speak, with the son of one of the friends that thinks she's actually a somewhat distant cousin of my wife's or something. And so that kind of came in. Well, that led to Jerome Frandl
Mhm.
being convicted or convicted of failure to report. And in his court case, his attorney was arguing that he was not a real minister because he was not
Mhm.
ordained and so shouldn't be held to these standards. And of course, the court saw right straight through that and just like, this is so this is sort of playing in the back of my head all these years.
Mhm.
And actually, before Peter even, I'd kind of watched the Catholic Church implode with many of the accusations that were there. And I went to the workers and I said, "Look, we need to be prepared for something like this. We have many of the same structural elements." And I kind of go, okay, uh, yeah. And that was it. Okay, fine. Who am I? I'm just don't know what I'm talking about. Don't have any background in any of this stuff. So then I'm out in Springfield, Oregon. My middle sister is actively dying. We're sitting my oldest sister Bonnie and I. Bonnie's in the work in Oregon.
Mhm.
She is helping as able now. So we're sitting
Mhm.
in Jan's room and talking, and she's getting all these texts into March 2023. She starts getting these texts and emails and things like that. She says, and looks up at me and she says, "Do you remember Brewer?" "Yeah." Seemed like a okay young brother worker when I was in high school. Dean was okay. I don't think too much about him. I kind of go through life sort of oblivious to a lot of things. She says, she just snapped these words out. She said, everything you knew about him was wrong. He is a predator. Just harsh terms. And wow. So she was she was then telling me additional things about it over the next couple of weeks as we cleared out the house and the funeral and all of that. Came back here to Michigan, and to be honest with you, I don't really know who started talking about it or anything like that. But I became aware of AFTT and started following them on Facebook. And I'd been out to Wings years ago, and so started doing that. Then I thought, what can I do? There's just yeah, two questions. What can I do, and where's everybody else at? What where do they lie in this whole thing? Because one, we're not hearing anything from workers, um, other than yeah, this happened, and it's unfortunate. And then among the friends, there just was not a lot of talking about it. So I started February of 24. We put together a meet and greet. Had about 30 people that showed up, and we had some people on Zoom and so forth. And went a whole day long. It was supposed to go about 3 hours, and I think we finally closed it about 6 hours.
Wow.
What I did is I used a technique that I've used in my work, in which we did kind of an overall presentation of this is where what the issues that we're talking about is. Here's what we know factually, and here are some things about abuse in general. So then I said, all right, I put sticky notes out for everybody. And I said, I want you to go through and I want you to write down things that you want to talk about. And then we're going to group them together and put all the ones that are similar in one pile. And then we're going to vote on them and see what we want to talk about. So we had like 30 35 different topics, and probably 60 to 90 sticky notes that we were able to kind of pull together. And then we started going through them, and it was very interesting to find out where people were at. There were a lot of people very, very frustrated. Two of the workers were there, the workers in our field. I invited them. They showed up. They made a early exit. They described the process as chaotic. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm not going to argue with that one because it's chaotic. It's open. It's open discussion. That's what it's all about. And we had people there that were in their 30s, never married. We had people that had families. We had one couple that I think they're late 70s, early 80s that were there. Another couple in their 70s. Sarah and I were there. And so it was just this huge cross section of people. Out of it, I put up a thing on the wall. I used to be a teacher, so got to have things on the walls. Well, put up a thing on the wall, and it said, "How many do you know?" And I had different columns, and I think it was 0, 1, 2, up to 20 or more. And I said, "Now take a sticky note, a sticky circle." I said, I don't want to know who, so don't put your name on it or anything. No, totally anonymous. I want you to put a sticker on the column that represents the number of people that you have known that have been abused. And they said, in the church or in the church? I said, I'll leave that to your definition. I said, just if you've known people that have been sexually abused, put a sticker up there. Part of the reasoning for that is to make people start to think about, how is this impacting me? And it's like, maybe it isn't impacting me directly or my family directly, but it's impacting people that I'm very close to. So there were half a dozen or so stickers in the 10 and 3 or 4 in the 20 column. I was absolutely flabbergasted.
Huh.
Well, then I went through that exercise for myself. And when I went off to college, I became acquainted with someone that I later found out was an abuser and a victim. And then I found out about Dan Helton,
Huh.
abuser, serial abuser. Now, the individual that I found out when I went off to college was somebody that was extremely close to me, was a mentor of mine, and that was very, very hard. I had to stop myself and say, wait a minute, I have to believe the victim. That is what I have chosen to do. I will do that. Second thought was, if he is able to abuse someone, that means any of us can. Any of us in the wrong situation could fall into that same trap. That was hard to do that. With Dan Hilton, I had to decide that on the one hand, he gave me some very good advice, comforting advice. On the other hand, he hurt people terribly. I have to hold both of those things in my hand. I
Mhm.
have to be able to recognize that there are people that are not just all bad or all good. The people are a mixture of things. That doesn't mean that the bad parts have to be accepted and agreed with. No, quite the opposite, in fact. They need to be held accountable. They need to restore as much as they can. They need to have justice brought to them on behalf of the victims. It also
Mhm.
means that when we come to a victim, this victim is not all good, nor is it all, nor are they all bad. There's some mixture in between. They are real humans. And they may not be somebody that is agreeable to get along with, but that does not invalidate what their experience is. They
Mhm.
still have a valid experience. And so that was kind of where I came out of 2024 to the last part of 2024. I kind of came to those places. So coming to where we are now, I have zero trust in the ministry. I hate to say it, but
Mhm.
somebody at one point said that you don't join a group, company, or an organization or whatever to wear the black hat, to be the bad guy. Unfortunately, the organization hands out the black hats. And I know that's true because I've had to wear the black hat in my work. I was part of a team that was brought in to see if we could save an account. And unfortunately, we really couldn't. So I had to interview people with the idea of whose jobs could be kept and whose jobs couldn't be kept. I got out of that as quickly as I possibly could. The reason for doing it was for my own career safety. If I would have said nope, I would have been released from the company and that would have been the end of things. So that would
Mhm.
have left me without a job, can't provide for my family, all of those things that Marty Solomon speaks about as being empire,
Mhm.
the self protection, the self preservation, and all of those things. So what I see in the workers is a great deal of that self preservation. There's first of all the preservation of the system, of the organization. And as much as they say it's not an organization, it's a family. It's an organization. A family is an organization as well. It is an organization.
Mhm.
From a sociological perspective, it's an organization. As such, it is trying to maintain itself.
Mhm.
It does that through the fact that the workers themselves individually have a dependency on the system for their upkeep and their livelihood and for their identity,
Mhm.
like their identity, the actual who they are. You know, when somebody would ask me, who are you? What do you? Well, I'm going to tell people what I did for a living. Most of the time when I started to describe it, most people eyes kind of glass over. I said, okay, fine. It's computer stuff. All right, we'll leave it at that. But their identity is so tied up in that, and it's so impossible to separate themselves from it. Now, are there workers that are honestly trying to do the right thing? Yeah, there are.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt about it.
Yep.
But they have been lied to. And the prior generations lied to the younger generations, and the younger generations believed it. The younger generations, in turn, pass that information along as if it were fact. Now, as they have become aware of it, they're really faced with the decision of, do I continue to spread information, theology, or doctrine, or whatever, that is false, or do I step back and say, this is this is wrong, I'm stepping away from it? I think and you've interviewed people that have done that, and I had a
Mm-hmm.
huge amount of respect for it. It's just incredible to be able to
Mm-hmm.
do that. They're stepping away from identity, they're stepping away from community, they're stepping away from livelihood. Where's my next meal coming from? Where am I going
Mm-hmm.
to sleep tonight? They're stepping away from all of that stuff. And what are they stepping into? Got no skills. A lot of them come right out of high school. Got no work experience. Some of them are old enough to be close to retirement, if not into retirement. They've got no retirement savings, no social security, nothing like that. It's all gone. So
Mm-hmm.
they are depending on strangers, if you will, on the goodness of strangers. Many of the friends turned their back on them. Other workers have turned their back on them. I was talking to someone a few weeks back, and this person, I'm very surprised that they saw this, and because I felt they were heads down, straight in, all of that. They said, I was talking about my working with Purchase and Bomb. And I said, we're trying
Mm-hmm.
to, these workers have nothing. And he says, what you guys are doing is, that's really important, because without it, you would have absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely nothing. It was validating to hear someone who goes to every meeting, is at convention, enjoys convention, being able to comprehend that, and just that that level of realization. And no, I can't affect everybody that way. I've had more people that yeah, I don't want to talk about it. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to lose my peace. I've kind of gotten finally gotten to the point where I quit pushing people.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to understand this, and
Mm-hmm.
now that doesn't work. That doesn't work. So that's kind of how we got where 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 I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so where are we at right now? We had conventions the last couple of weekends.
Mm-hmm.
They were hard.
Oh man.
Sarah, my wife Sarah, and I both came home, and just it was. We drove over to Alma the first day on Thursday, and stayed for two meetings, and then over on Friday for a couple of weeks. Saturday we stayed for all three meetings, which was an absolute disaster. And Sunday we did the Sunday morning meeting. Carsonville, we talked about it. We're Sunday morning meeting. That's it. That's all we can do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because I think that we're starting to look at scripture, at doctrine in a very different
Mm-hmm.
way. We're seeing things that are just like, they're not just wrong, they're ugly, they're hurtful, and it feels to me. I'm not going to say that this is the way that they're dealing with things. It feels to me like they're trying to circle the wagons and basically abandon anyone that doesn't agree 100%. At Alma, we found out that at the meeting before the baptism, they asked three questions. Do you believe Christ died for your sins? Do you commit your life to Christ? Third question was, do you believe this is the one and only ministry? I have such respect for those that said no. Sorry. Those young people have far more integrity than I think I ever have. It's just so at this point, my wife and I have talked about it. We're making a decision basically on a day-by-day basis.
Mm.
If we feel like, like what we're doing is the right thing to do, then we'll do it. If we don't, we won't. And seeking more than ever, seeking to get the voice of God wherever that may come from. I don't want to see anybody else get hurt. When they tested the meeting on Saturday night, I couldn't even look up. I just like, no. Cannot see anyone else getting hurt. Oh, one thing I did miss. This is the good stuff. Out of that meet and greet in February, Mike Groseth, and you interviewed Mike. Absolutely wonderful. I love Mike more. How it's just incredible. He put together a WhatsApp group. It started out Michigan, Ohio, and they're pulled in some other people. And kind of the rules are now, if you ever lived in Michigan or Ohio, we'll invite you into the group. Anyway, large number of people in there. Very, very active. After last Sunday, there was probably, 40, 45 messages back and forth and conversations and discussions and emphasizing what somebody else had already said. Yeah, this is really right, good, and then add this to it. Kind of conversations that were going on. And again, we get kids that just graduated out of college, all the way up to an elderly woman that I'm really surprised she knows how to use computers. She's of that age. It's just an amazing sort of experience. The love and care and honesty. And it's just unreal. And then, coming out of it again, finding out, who is kind of where and what their concerns are. Families with children are a much different set of concerns than those of us that are empty nesters and so forth. And it's just wonderful to see those things coming out in this kind of a group. We've tried to get everybody together in one place, and it's not happened so far. Hopefully it will at some point. Yeah. And then of course CCF, kind of not as quite as active there as I am with this. CCF with this huge thing that kind of amazing.
Yeah, man, Tom, thank you. Man, I appreciate the work you're doing, the conversations you're having. And for me today, I just feel so thankful and overwhelmed that you're willing to share where you are in your story with me and with others because, man, right there with you.
All right. One last thing. Again, Prison Balm. It's a fantastic organization. There's incredible people there. And the work they're doing is unreal. Their expense ratio, the expense to donations ratio is the lowest of any nonprofit that I can imagine. Voices for the Truth is probably right in the same place. Now, when I joined up with both Voices for the Truth and Bridges Mom, and Voices for the Truth did an incredible job at an incredible expense. The folks that were involved, the victims or survivors that were involved in it, they paid a tremendous price in putting that together, and really appreciated the efforts that they went to and the struggles they went through. the things that we were still working on there, the emergency critical hotline is still there. It's moving over to Bridges and Baum. Being part of both groups, I did not have any take in that. I agreed to it. I thought it'd be a great idea, but I was not. I didn't instrument that at all. And then
Mhm.
Tyrion's book club has also come over as well. So very happy that that's being continued on in the Bridges and Baum, and kind of sad to see
Yep.
voices going away. But on the other hand, everything they set out to do, they either accomplished or others
Mhm.
have accomplished and carried it
Mhm.
from there. So
Yeah. Such important work. Thank you for your work with both of them, because, like you say, it's so vitally important. I mean, there's so much work to be done that all of these organizations are so important.
I don't know for certain, but talking to advocates at our local domestic abuse shelter, they told me that most male victims are my age or older before they start talking about what happened to them as children.
Mhm.
And that makes me a little bit concerned that we have an entire group out there that we've not been able, that have not, for good reason, they've not been able to come forward. And I just want to say, I'm here. I don't, I don't think I was a victim. I don't ever remember anything, but it's important.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you for that. Thanks for all your help. Thanks for your perspective and your story.
Thank you for all the work you're doing as well.
Mhm. You're very welcome. My pleasure. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks,
Thanks.
Tom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bye.